Welcome to the Hardwood Time Capsule podcast. This episode features a 3-time NBL champion who brought flashy playmaking skills and creativity, the likes of which we had never seen before in the league. He was known as Mr. Excitement on the street courts of New York. We know him as Dmack. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Darryl McDonald. Dmack, welcome to the podcast.
Sorry, man. Both of my laptops is that's why I'm on my phone. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. We're just happy to have you on. I know it's a busy time. You've obviously relocated from Melbourne up to Brisbane. You've got to build a whole bunch of new relationships with a new team. You've got, I think the first game of the NBL preseason is tomorrow, and that's you guys. So that'll be this time tomorrow for those that want to tune in. I'm not sure if it's streamed or not. And then your team down in Melbourne, the NBL 1 team that you were with up till you had to go up to Brisbane, are in their final on Saturday. Yeah. So it's been a crazy time. So I think we might start there. Just how have you settled in? How's everything going?
Settled in. Yeah, definitely settled in. I mean, it's been good. Got up here at the end of the month, end of June. And some guys wasn't here, so we was just doing workouts pretty much every day. And then slowly but surely, guys started coming in, and again, just trying to prepare. It's early days. But once we got everybody in, we actually started on the 24th of July.
Yeah. And
just building, man. Slowly trying to build something here.
Yeah, so I guess from an outside perspective, from us that are sort of fans, when you're in that role, before we sort of take a trip down memory lane with your own career, when you're meeting new guys, do you just have like a face-to-face meeting, or are you straight on court? What's the procedure?
Well, so before we started, when we started putting the group together, we had Zooms with a lot of guys that weren't around. So we was on a fair bit of Zooms. And then again, once they made their way into Brisbane, it's like a light catch up. You know what I mean? Like it's nothing too crazy. Like again, everybody knew when we were starting. So most of them tried to get here on time. Like our import actually just got here yesterday, which was our first import. Chris got here yesterday and kind of, didn't train. We just got him some shots afterwards. Shannon gets here on the 16th. But yeah, it's just light catch-ups. Like nothing too crazy. Because we talked to most of those guys before that anyway.
Yeah. I guess that was one of the other questions I had, because obviously the most recent coach you work with in Dean Vickerman down at Melbourne United, he was saying that when he was asked about the recruitment process, that it's like a year-long thing where between the ownership and coaches and all that, they're looking at players. I guess, my question was, with Brisbane, what's the recruiting process like? Obviously in AFL with more money and those sort of things, those sort of sports have specific recruiting managers or recruiting guys that are constantly out there as their full-time job. Whereas the NBL, it might get there soon, but it's not there at the moment. Can you give the fans sort of an insight into, how much input the coaches have versus the ownership group versus, I guess, maybe the captain of the team? I guess it's going to change from team to team.
Yeah, well, for us, okay, so before we started, right, when Shula got the job, it was one of those situations where he had a group of guys that he wanted. So he reached out to myself, the other assistants, Greg Vanderjag, Josh Cheney, Ian Stacker was another one. So he reached out to all of us, and he just gave us names. Gave us names. This is what we're looking. This is what I'm trying to get. Right. This is the team I want to put together. And with the players we picked, we was all on board with those players. Now, in saying that, doesn't happen all the time, because we had other guys that we looked at that we couldn't get, I'm saying on here, like we just couldn't afford them, but they was on the list of who we wanted, and like I said, what we was putting together. I think for the owners, I guess it's like we got a guy in the States. His name is Stu, who does a lot of our basketball kind of operational stuff. If that's the right term, maybe that's not the right term, but he oversees contracts. You know what I mean? Like he does all the contract stuff
He's
and things
involved,
like that. Yeah, so he's heavily involved in. But I think for him it's like, okay, so who do you want? Like, let's find a way to make this thing work. And that was the thing, and that's why we ended up with the team we wanted. You know what I mean? And he gets on phone, he gets on calls with agents. Shula, Justin gets on calls with agents, and that's how that's how it pans out. I think it's for one thing, and not only that. Again, you call Sobey, you call Baines. This is what we're looking to do, and they were, they was all on board with it also. So it plays a lot of people. It plays a big part. A lot of people play a big part in recruitment. And Dean was right. Like it takes a long time because again, it's almost one of those situations. Once the season ends, you already recruiting for next year. It's almost like the next day. You know what I mean? And it's funny because of like the free agents list can't come out till like 2 weeks after the grand final.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's people you already know who's free agents. You know who's on the list.
Of
you know
course,
what I mean?
yeah.
But you just can't talk to them.
Yeah.
But when the time came, like we jumped on, Shula jumped on board with this is what we're looking at. And it's the same thing with imports. Right? So we get a list of imports and it's like a big list. Does he fit what we do? Blah 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 blah. Then we break it down to like 5. Then you cut it down to 2. But we all in agreements with who we want. You know what I mean? Shula still makes the ultimate decision on everything.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. I mean, that's just great in itself because you're going to have fans. I mean, you guys cop it more than the rest of us as coaches, but fans that just jump the gun and go, why don't you get this guy? Why don't you get that guy? And
All
they
the
don't
time.
understand the process. So the fact
they have no idea.
Yeah, the fact that you can explain that process to those that are listening is going to be beneficial.
So much that go in. It's so much that goes into recruiting that. And again, like you want to, we trying to win the championship. Simple. Yeah. Like we not recruiting to make the playoffs. We recruiting to make. We recruited this team to win it all. You know what I mean? And that's our mindset going into preseason. Our players know it. The owners know it. Staff, everybody knows why we put this team together. And again, it's getting the thing to work. That's going to be the main thing.
Yeah, it's always the goal is get that chemistry going, but sometimes it takes some time. But as long as you're peaking at the right time, then that's all that matters.
Absolutely, and staying healthy.
Yeah, staying healthy, of course. Yeah, not having those injuries. So that's probably a good segue to sort of take us back a little bit because I know the listeners will be keen. I've had a bunch of messages since I announced you were coming on about going through your own pro career, which was obviously amazing. But we're going to get to the point where you got recruited. So now I just want you to confirm something for me. So before you came to Australia to play with the North Melbourne Giants, you played with the Oklahoma City Cavalry and the Sioux Falls Skyforce. Now, from what Scott Fisher on one of the other podcast episodes explained to me, that's kind of the equivalent of like what the G League would be today. Is that right?
It's pretty much the same, yeah. It was back then it was called the CBA.
Right.
But it's similar. Yeah, it's similar to the G League. Like there's feeder clubs to the NBA. Like I can't remember who was our feeder. I think our feeder club was Utah Jazz, maybe.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's absolutely the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. And so then I guess from there in 1994, you come across to Australia, to the North Melbourne Giants.
North Melbourne Giants.
Can you let us know sort of what's the link there? Like who recruited you? How did they even know about you? Obviously we know about, well, maybe not obviously. I mean, if you want to talk about your Rucker Park experience and early days and all that sort of folklore, you can. But I guess the end result is how did you end up here?
Okay, how much time you got?
That's good. I've opened a can of worms there.
So for myself, okay, I'll go back to right. So I was a streetball player. And it's funny. I was a streetball player, right? I wasn't in school at the time. Got recruited to actually go back to school.
What age were you at this point?
I was 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 20. So again, out of school, got my diploma. So I ended up taking this test, ended up getting my diploma and playing streetball. So all this kind of happened. This is funny how I ended up in this position, coming from playing streetball. So playing in the tournament, this guy see me. His name was Lincoln. His name was Lincoln Sessom. So he seen me playing, and he actually was in school, and I was like, no. And do you want to go back? Do you want to go back to school? And I was like, sure. You know what I mean? And especially because I knew I was going to be able to hoop. I was going to be able to play. And he said, just in a week, I'm gonna talk to a coach. This was junior college, so I'm gonna talk to this coach. I'm gonna have those guys come down, have a look at you, and then we go from there. So I ended up that summer. These two coaches came from Westchester Community College. Met my mom, met my grandma, met a couple of my brothers, and then this was the summer, say summer '84. I was in JUCO in September.
Yeah.
Right. Did my 2 years in junior college, made All-American my second year. Got recruited by Texas A&M University. Ended up, well, we made the tournament my first year, so I was only there for 2 years. I did JUCO for 2, did that for 2, made the tournament in the first year. Second year, we got bumped out early. I didn't get drafted, but I tried out for the New Jersey Nets. They were the New Jersey Nets at the time. Wasn't that probably was at that time? I wasn't good enough to make the NBA. Well, I wouldn't even say that. When I went to tryouts, what I was doing in the tryouts was what they wanted me to do instead of playing my actual game. So I ended up getting cut. From there, I didn't actually have nothing, so I didn't play. I had to work. So again, at the time, I had 3 sons at the time, so I had to work. So end up getting a job, just kind of working full time. Then I like to tell a story. Sometimes I don't, but New Year's Day, I can't remember. It might have been 1990. So New Year's Day, either 90 or 91. Out with my boys or out with one of my friends. We was actually, because I used to work I worked a night shift at Toys R Us, which was ideal for me because of my boy, because I had the 3 kids. So on our way to work one day, these guys pulled up. I don't want to give you the whole story, but on our way to work, got pulled up. These guys pulled up on this guy, got out of his car, pulled out a shotgun, shot at us.
Damn.
Didn't me or my friend didn't get hit, but it was another guy out there. He ended up getting hit in his foot at the time. So now it's funny because now I gotta carry a gun, which I'm not. That's not me, but I'm calling myself protecting myself. And then I just like, you know what? I can't do this. So I had a brother who lived in Connecticut. So end up going to live with him, working up there. I worked on a Navy base in Connecticut, and I hooped pretty much every day. So after work, I go straight to the gym and play. After work, straight to the gym and play. And I did this for about 5 months. Right? In May came, so I ended up getting a call. So I had tried out for this team. But let me go back. I tried out for this team. I ended up getting cut. But the guy that was coaching, he ended up coaching another team, and it was called the WBL. So it was a 6'4" and under league.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 6'4" and under league. So I ended up playing. This was in Vegas too. So I ended up playing. I went for the tryout, right? And I ended up getting cut. I get home, and no less than a week, this coach actually calls me back. So now I'm playing in Vegas, which is crazy. So the day I flew out, right? The day I flew out to go, I had to meet them in somewhere in Rochester, in Boston. I think it was Rochester. No, not Rochester. It's called something else. I had to meet them in Boston because we had a game. That same day, my daughter was born. God rest her soul. She was born on that day. So I went to the hospital to see her, came home, jumped on a plane, went to play my first game. Right? I didn't even play. I sat on the bench. Flew out of there. I can't remember where this at. Flew out of there, flew to Vegas. So now I'm in Vegas for like the whole summer playing in the 6'4" and under league. Right? Season's over. I go try out. And this is how I ended up in Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City Cavalry. So I ended up trying out for Oklahoma City. And that was a CBA team. So that was actually it was their first year. And we wasn't that good. So we're about 10, maybe 15 games in. I'm in a game. I foul this guy, right? This is how the CBA, back then, this is how the CBA works. So I foul this guy, put him on the line. He wins the game. The next morning, they cut me.
Oh, cutthroat.
Yeah, I get cut. So cutthroat, absolutely. The coach cuts me. I go back. I fly back to New York. Now I'm back home, right? Not working, not doing nothing. I'm home for a week. This coach calls me back again. So
the same one they cut you?
The same one they cut me after a week. This happened twice now. After a week, same coach calls me back. So I finished the season. So from there, they traded me at the end of that season. They traded me to Sioux Falls. So now I ended up in Sioux Falls for 3 seasons. So about my third season, I was actually having my best season. And how I end up in Australia. So Brett Brown, and this is another story people don't know. Brett Brown wasn't even looking at me. He was looking at somebody else.
Right.
So, and if you think now, like the recruitment now is unbelievable how there's so many different avenues of recruitment done now. When back then it was a VCR tape. You know what I mean? They see you on VCR. He was looking at a guy called Cedric Hunter, who I used to play with.
Right.
Right? End up seeing me, and he's like, actually, I'm looking at the wrong guy here. So that's how I ended up in Australia.
Unbelievable. Thank you very much for sharing that story.
So that's how I ended up here.
Yeah. That's a great story of perseverance, especially when you're probably just playing just to be seen. If you're in a 6'4" and under league, like you're not playing to
and that was thing.
Get rich.
Like again, so people play in that league, or they play in the CBA to go to the NBA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or try to go to the NBA or go to Europe. And I actually forgot. I got a Philippine story, but I won't tell you it. But I ended up going before I came here. I had an opportunity to go to the Philippines and try out, and that was also a 6'4" and under league.
Yeah.
Or actually, no, this was a 6'2" and under league.
Wow, it's a Philippines.
Right in the Philippines, 6'2" and under. So I get over there, and like the first thing, I was a scorer. If I scored, if I need to. If you play in that league, you got to score. Like,
right.
You get triple, you got double team, you get triple team. You got to put the ball in the hole. They didn't care. So I go over there. In my first training session, I'm passing. I'm throwing it to the guys. They throwing it back to me. You know what I mean? I'm throwing it to guys. They throwing it back to me. So I go out to dinner, right? I go out to dinner with the coach. And he goes, don't pass. Never pass the ball. Even if you got 2 guys on you, 3 guys on you, you shoot it. I'm like, cool. So next day, I get in there, and I'm just jacking up everything. I'm just shooting every time I take, just going up. And they loving it because this is how they want you to play. So every time they get the ball, they just throw it to me, and I was shooting it. So we go to dinner again. They take me back to my room. I get a knock on my door about 4:00 in the morning. Oh, no, actually, let me tell you what happened. I went and got measured. So I had to get measured. I did that first. So I went and after we...
Oh, because of the league rules. Yeah.
Because of the league rules. I went and got measured. They measured me at 6'2" and a quarter.
Oh.
Right? This is crazy. They measured me at 6'2" and a quarter. Next morning, I get a knock on my door 4 in the morning. So I had a driver, right? So I had a guy that drove me around. He's knocking on my door. I go, dude, it's 4:00 in the morning, man. What do you want? Like, it's 4 in the morning. He says, we need to go. I said, we need to go where? We need to go to the track. What track? What do you mean we need to go to the track? He said, we're going to get your height down. This is what he told me.
This is amazing.
I'm telling you. He's like, we're going to get your height down. I'm like, how you going to get my height down? So we want you to take me to the park, drops me off. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of the Philippines. I have no idea where I'm at. I'm in the middle of the Philippines. He goes, you got to run. And I'm like, For like, where am I running? What I need to run for? Excuse me. You got to run. So I'm running, and then he keeps saying again, we're going to get your height down. We're going to get your height down. So I'm running. He comes back and picks me up. I'm tired. Like, I'm cooked. Takes me to the barbershop. They cut off all my hair. Right? Then they take me to get measured again. So, and this, I tell these people this story. It's funny. I tell them all the time. So they take me to get measured. So I'm in the bathroom before I get measured. They bring a midget in and sit him on my shoulders. I'm dead serious. They bring a midget in and sit him on my shoulders. So now I'm walking around the bathroom for about 15 minutes with this midget on my shoulder. Right?
And
the whole thing is to get me to get me to slouch. So take me off. I go get measured. They measured me at 6'2" and an eighth.
Oh, come on.
Gave me $100 and sent me home. That's another reason why I ended up in Australia. Because if I would have stayed there, that season went from I would have been there. I would have probably still ended up here, but I would have played in the Philippines before I came here.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up in Australia.
That is unbelievable. So, you need to write a book one day and put that in there.
I said I would write a book one day, but I'm not gonna do it.
That's unbelievable. So obviously then you come in and for those that might be teenagers, listening and those sort of things, I'll give a little bit of rundown of your resume. So you obviously come in 1994 and play for the North Melbourne Giants from 94 to 98, and then go across to the Victoria Titans. They kind of changed into the Giants. For those that are avid listeners, they'll know sort of all about that. And then thank God you eventually came to the Melbourne Tigers, which was my team at the time, and because we were sick of you chewing us up and throwing behind the back passes and all that sort of stuff. And you came to us and had a lot of success with Al Westover and a couple of different coaches, and then ended up actually coaching the team at one point. But we'll get to that at some point. And more importantly, I don't want to sound like I'm blowing over your career, because it was an amazing career where you won 3 NBL championships. In fact, in your first year, I believe it was
94.
1994 at the Giants, and then 2 more with the Tigers, and pretty much finish your playing career on the perfect note: a Game 5 victory, and a championship. I mean, that's that. If you're good enough to make the NBL, that's how you want to finish it. And then individually, obviously, just freakish hands. You know what I mean? Like 8 times you led the league in steals. Your passing was amazing. I put up a clip of you on our Instagram today, and Rusty Hinder messaged me and said, yeah, he was amazing to play against. He was just, he's like, we'll get to, I've got a lot of questions about sort of the way you play and sort of fitting into, when there's structure, but then there's someone like you that needs freedom because you're creative and those sort of things. So we'll get to that shortly. But other accolades you had were NBL first teams, All-Star Game MVPs back when we had the All-Star Game, NBL good hands, which for the listeners, can you sort of back over that? Because that's a combination, I believe, of steals, assists,
minus turnovers.
Yeah. So that sort of reminds them of that. I guess, before we go into your coaching stuff, with the way you played, I actually thought of you the other day because Julius Randle, who was an import in the NBL, put up a clip saying
Jerome Randle.
Sorry, Jerome Randle.
Yep.
Yeah, Jerome Randle put up a clip the other day, and who played for Sydney Kings in Adelaide, and said, I think if I got to play in the NBA without restriction, without control over plays, I could have been a 20 points per game player. And I guess the reason I thought of you was, when you look at things like, obviously, the Melbourne Tigers are famous for the shuffle offense, and there's all different sort of coaches have different theories and those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
How do how does a coach in your time anyway merge structure into giving you the freedom that you need to make plays on a whim or ad hoc as such?
That's actually a pretty good question. Well, with Brett, when I first came in, it was almost like my first training session, right? So we down in either Warrnambool or Auburn. We did like an away camp, and we doing these drills, right? We doing these like two ball dribbling. I couldn't dribble with two balls.
Right.
I never dribbled with two balls. I only dribbled with one, so I couldn't do it. But then we started training, and now I'm doing what I do. Like, I'm hooping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't no real. It was like, go down there, play. Shake and bake. I might have been Pat Reedy. I think I hit him in the face with a pass. I'm just doing everything I do. And then we got back to Melbourne, and he just, dude, I'm just gonna put you. I'm gonna put you in pick and rolls. I'm gonna put you on the wing, let you break people down. Then again, I wasn't a great shooter, but I can always use my speed. And if you play off me, I'm gonna find people. So it kind of went both ways. But he kind of just gave me the keys, man. Just hoop. You know what I mean? Gave me the freedom to call the plays I wanted. If he wanted something, he'll let me know. But he let me play. You know what I mean? And it's funny because then when I ended up with the Titans and Brian Gorgie, it wasn't the same. Like, it was more like we didn't have a structure, but he ran pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Okay. But then one day, like we met. Like, he just brought. We was at Sandringham, and he took me up in the stand, and we were just sitting there chatting. And he said, "You know what? I just realized I got to let you play. I'm just gonna let you. You just do you. You just go out there and play, man." And again, it's just letting you like, he sees what I can do, because he sees it every day in training. You just hoop, man. And that was it. He just let me play. Then I got to Melbourne. Lindsay was there, and it was the same. You just play. Like, but again, you see the shuffle. You know what the shuffle is.
Yeah.
But we found ways. So the difference with me playing in it and Andrew Gage playing in it, the shuffle was made. It's similar. It's kind of made for the point guard.
Yeah.
But a scoring point guard. Like, I wasn't a scorer, but I still used it to my advantage. And Lindsay let me play. But then when I got Al, again, let me just go hoop. Run our offense. You know how to get shot, and we worked on it every day. Like, every session before we actually trained, we worked on the shuffle. And it's funny because I played against it for 10 years. Like, I had to defend it for 10 years.
Yeah.
But then you get in it and have to, you know what I mean? You get in it and understand all the intricacies about it. And then Al actually added more stuff to it, which made us even more impossible to guard. You know what I mean? But you learn, and you know, I knew where all my shots come from. And this is what I tell point guards to this day. You got to know where every shot comes from, or you got to know where every player wants their shots. Like, I had to know where Anstey wants the ball. I had to know where DT wants his shots. Rashard Tucker I had to know where all these guys wanted their shots. And in the shuffle, I knew that. Like, I figured it out. Like, I knew, and I used to try to start every game. Everybody gets a shot. Like, let me get Anstey a shot, DT a shot. Let me get who was our starting foreman at the time. When the first year we had a Mottram, I had to get him a shot, and who was our two? And DT was our two man. Our three man was Rashard Tucker. I knew how to get all these guys shots. But if I needed to get a shot for myself, I knew how to do that. But again, sometimes I won't. But Al will go, like, we had, like, our thumbs up was a mid pick and roll, and that was my thing. Like, if you put me in a pick and roll, I'm gonna make something happen. I'm either gonna score or somebody's gonna score. So he knew that. Like, if we're bogging down, Hey, here go thumbs up, or here go yellow. Yellow was a call.
Yeah.
Yellow was pick and roll, or double yellow. So it's pick and roll going one way, another big comes, double yellow. So he'll put me in those situations anytime if I needed to create something. You know what I mean? But all the coaches pretty much gave me the freedom to just play.
Yeah. And I think that's full respect to you, because for a coach to actually give up control, because obviously when things go bad, the coach is the first one to go.
Yeah,
So
that's the crazy thing. Yeah.
for the coach to give you the keys is a credit to you and what you do. And I think there's doing what you do, but then there's also getting the team involved, which is obviously what you did really well.
Yeah.
And I actually had a question written down to you, but you've kind of stolen it there, in the sense that when you said you hit Pat Reedy in the face, I'm like, there must have been some big guys going, we got to be aware, like, all the time, because he could be facing the other side of the court, and he's gonna throw it to us.
I'll see you. Yeah.
So
It was like that.
Is that just spending time in training, like chemistry and that sort of thing?
Yeah, but again, it's a lot of it I learned playing on the streets.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
But I mean, for them,
again,
like, do they adjust, or do you just? Because I mean, you don't need to adjust your game. You're finding open players. It's up for them to adjust, really.
Yeah, and some of it is and some of it is offense too. Like, so understanding, like I said, I knew where all the shots coming from, but understanding, like, if I can attack a certain way, right? I know I'm gonna draw help, and I can give it up. It's just for them to be able to catch it and finish it. You know what I mean? And again, putting me in situations like that. Like, I knew I can get in. I can get up in the air. You know, bigs are going to jump, because what do bigs do? They want to block shots.
Yeah.
Right. So I can get up, and as I get up in the air and they jump, I just drop that ball off. And those were the ones where guys can see, like, they know it's coming. That was the thing. It's being prepared, know it's coming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's also, I was good at throwing the ball, like, right past your head. So if you're defending, you get what I mean? Like, if you're defending and you don't see me, I'll just throw it right past your head.
Yeah.
And those guys are looking at me, so they know it's coming. The guy that's got his back turned has no idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So little things like that. Like, it doesn't. The guy don't have to be looking at you or he has to know it's coming.
Yeah.
But it's just being ready for it.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Just being ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah, and I think that sort of leads me into my next part. Is I feel like, I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but as your career, went along, you actually did develop. I know you were critical of your shot earlier, but you developed a 3-point shot, and you were able to knock that down. And so again, that adds a dynamic. Where do we take away the drive? Do we play up? And I think that, without being super critical of someone like, I'll name many ways, like a Corey Williams, for example, where a great driver, great street ball player, great slash of the basket, but and full credit, I mean, he won an MVP.
Yeah, he did.
But at the end of the day, even at the end of his career, players were playing on the under 10 free throw line defense against him to take away to take away the drive. So you took that away, because obviously, if you're a 3-point threat, was that something that was conscious, or you just kept working at it? Like,
kept working, just kept working on it. I became conscious of it, and it was probably later in my career. I used to shoot, like, I shot every day. It was part of a routine. Like, we had to shoot every day. And a lot of it's confidence, right? So the more I shot, I wasn't afraid to take that open one. You know what I mean? And then teams, again, it is funny, I go back, I can't remember what one coach told me, we didn't get under you, right? We wasn't getting under you because we wanted you to shoot. We was getting under you because we wanted to keep you out of the paint.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm thinking, so y'all want me to, y'all only getting under me because y'all want me to shoot. And so I put the time in. Like, it's something that I actually worked on. And I put a lot of time in. And I had, not every, but I had a couple of seasons where I shot over 35% from three.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it also goes back to one of those situations where you're like, where some coaches are like he still can't shoot. You know what I mean? He still can't shoot. Now watch who I bring up Avery Johnson. I was home when San Antonio Spurs played the Knicks in the finals, and he
Yeah.
hit that corner jumper. Right, and again, this is a jumper they're going to give to him because it's Avery Johnson.
Hmm.
But you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
something that you work on, and
Yeah.
that's all I did. I seriously, I put a lot of time into it. I shot every day, and then like even now coaching, I look at a lot of the guys that everybody works on their game, and everybody shoots. Like Chris Goulden is I've been around him for some years. Shoots every day
Yeah.
after training. Makes 10 in a row from 5 spots every day. You know what I mean? And you see why he shoots like that.
Yeah.
But
No, that's
again,
great for you to share because
yeah,
that's going to
he puts
resonate
the
with.
time in.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Puts the
Because some
time
people
in.
might assume, when you get to that level and you're that good, you don't need to do that. But if you're
You
still
don't have
doing
to
that,
work on it. He
yeah,
every day.
yeah.
Every day.
No, that's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that.
He
Yeah, I
gets his
mean,
shots in.
yeah, if you can, yeah, and that's probably good to any players listening as well, because we do have a few players that are currently playing in things like the Big V and the NBL one that message in, and I think if you just get multi weaponry, it's harder to figure you out. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
even if you had got into the paint, like the coaches didn't want, they still don't know whether you're going to shoot, whether you're going to pass. You might have
All
been past
pass,
the
yeah.
first.
That
Yeah,
exactly. That played a part in it.
yeah. It's just
Played
it's
a
a
big
guessing
part.
game. Do I help on Dmack? Do I not help? All those
Yeah.
sort of things.
See,
Um,
I had a floater too, so my floater and runner was pretty good.
yeah. And the other
So
thing I
again,
noticed
when you
about,
come up, I drop it off.
yeah, 100%. And the other thing is it wasn't just a lot of people, I guess, breaking ankles and that sort of thing is glamorous, but you use change of speed a lot too, rather and stepping through, as well as just crossovers. So I think that's what was a little bit different to your game as well. Was it wasn't just crossing a guy and then going; it was hesitate, go, pull back,
Yeah,
and before you,
it's
yeah,
just again, it's keeping defenses off balance. That's
mm,
all it is. You know what I mean? Because again, I stop. You don't know what I'm gonna do when
yeah,
I stop. So and
yeah,
again, I to this day, I teach that to to everything. All the guys I work on, I teach them that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Stop, go. Just to keep the defense off balance and not knowing what you're gonna do. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
No, that's fair enough. That's absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because some of them might go in there with, I guess for the juniors listening, or the coaches that coach juniors, often they'll give them one goal. Force them left or force them right. If you've changed them 2 or 3 different times, they don't know whether they're going left, right, backwards, forwards.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And that's the
and
thing. Sometimes you can just go straight and stop. What
yeah,
does the defense do?
yeah,
They raise. Like a lot of they see you stop, so they raise up, and then that's
yeah,
when you attack. And when you attack their hips, you attack their shoulders, and they can't. There's nothing they can do. They can't recover.
yeah,
So
100%. And I've got a question later down the line, but I'm going to ask it now because we're on the topic. Is obviously you had an insane IQ level when it comes to basketball. Anyway, it was just like, it's one thing to have that; it's another thing to try and instill that in someone you're coaching.
yeah, it's hard.
Is it putting them in scenarios? Is it just taking time? What's your approach to that sort of thing?
I think right now, some of it is watching. It's just watching the game.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like get online. Like if you got favorite players, just go watch them. Like this, you can go to YouTube and see every player. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like you can just get online and watch guys play. You know what I mean? Like and so what I tell and I use this a lot. Again with not point guards, but pretty much everybody. Know where everybody on the floor is. Right. So and for point guards, once you got the ball, so even you got to take a snapshot of the whole floor, right, before you even touch the ball.
yeah,
But once it's in your hands, you know where everybody is. You know what I mean? And again, it's understanding offense. Like it's understanding what's being run. Know every play. Like even if you're not a point guard, for five men need to know what point guards where point guard shots are coming in. So every position should know every position.
Yeah.
And that's where so that way you actually know what's happening. But again, for me, the IQ stuff is just watching. It's just watching the game. You know what I mean? It's going out. It's getting getting in the game, and some of it is. And it's funny because they don't do it a lot here. Go get, or maybe they're doing it a little bit more, but go get 9 of your boys and go hoop.
Yeah.
Just go play. Just go to the park and play. That's how again I learned to play on the street. I didn't have coaches telling me do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you just gotta just go play 3-on-3. Like 1-on-1. I'm big on 1-on-1. Big like all that where you're just competing and you don't have somebody telling you do this, do this, do this. I think that all plays a part in IQ.
Yeah.
You know,
No, well, it makes sense.
and being able to make reads.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the practicality of it versus theory, like it makes sense. Even from like a teaching point of view in primary school or high school, I think the studies say that 80% of 80% of people learn better from doing it rather than actually looking at it or
Absolutely.
hearing it.
Absolutely.
I think that's great. I guess to finish this point off is when you're working with players, professionals, and you're wanting them to have that high IQ, know what everyone's doing, is it more challenging than if you're working with a scoring first point guard, or does it not matter?
That's actually a pretty good question. It's an interesting one, and I'll tell you why. All right, so I've worked with Josh Giddey, who's probably a pass first. You know what I mean? I think, and I work with Dyson Daniel, who's probably score first in their own little. You know what I mean? What I do, so a lot of drills I do is, it's penetrate and kick. You know what I mean? I do that with both of them: penetrate, kick, relocate, just that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But it's hard because when it's 1-on-1, so when it's 1-on-1 training, like it's harder. But again, like I said, usually putting them in 2-on-2 scenarios. Now it's making reads. Like, okay, he gets. What are we doing if he gets under screen? What are we doing if he chases over the screen? It's being able to make those kind of reads, which is sometimes it's actually hard when you're doing it 1-on-1. So in any kind of 1-on-1 stuff, so I teach a lot of breakdown stuff, how to break players down, especially with those two, because in the NBA, there's a lot of switching in the NBA.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So again, you come off a screen, they switch. You got a big on you. How do you break them down? So I teach a lot of that stuff. And a lot of it is being able to create separation to get your shot off, or being able to break him down to get somebody else's shot. That's the kind of stuff I teach those guys on 1-on-1. Now, like I said, I'm not taking, and I've said say it all the time, I don't take credit for how they play, because I've trained them I started training them right before they became pros. They was already going to be going to the NBA. I just started working out with those guys then.
Yeah, no, but it completely makes sense exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
On the 1-on-1 stuff, because it was, I guess, for those that are listening anyway in Australia, you'll probably know of the next star that's with the Brisbane Bullets, Rocco Zikarsky. So I guess in that regard, the reason I bring him up is when you're teaching him how to play off a pick and roll or something like that, instead of going 1-on-1, do you get a guard involved in his individual sessions, or do you do them? What's a bit of an insight into that side of things?
Well, okay, so that's an interesting one also. If I'm working with him, which I did some session with him when we first signed him. I usually do it, but in saying that, we also have and again, I'm not right now. I haven't since we've put our team together. He's done a lot of work with Greg Vanderjagt.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
With Vandy, right? So he's done a lot of big man work, right? When I was working with him, he did big man work, but I also was doing a lot of ball handling and stuff with him.
Yeah.
To help him, to help him with his ball handling, but also putting him in pick and rolls. and hitting like you're catching it in this spot, this. You catch it in this spot, do this. You catch it in this spot, do that. So, but then we also have connection drills that we do where we have a guard, like we have a point guard and a five. You know what I mean? And the point guard's 5 minutes sets the screen. Point guard got to make a read on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we have our 2s and 4s, or our 2s, 3s, and 4s, kind of doing similar drills. You know what I mean? But if I'm working with a one-on-one, I'm usually the one that's coming off of it because it's just me and him.
Yeah.
But it's making those reads. Like I'll throw it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll come off, I'll just throw it to the rim. You got to go get it. Go up, dunk it, bring it down, dunk it again. Just that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but again, he's done. He's done a lot of work with Vandy.
Yeah.
And he's got Baines there. He's got Tyrell Harrison. These guys he's going against every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah. No, I appreciate you. Like all of this information is stuff that obviously is common knowledge for you guys that are on the inside, but it's just an amazing insight sort of for us that are out. And I think the more, we can learn from you guys, the better, because then we have a more informed opinion. We appreciate so much, what you put into it, and even what you said before, just the fact that it was what you said before about NBA guys switching. I remember only a week ago when a lot of the NBA crew were down at Sandy in Melbourne United, and Dean Vickerman's like, it was great to have them all down here, but it was driving us nuts because we're trying to run offense, but they're switching on everything, and so we can't get through it, and so it's just for you to sort of know that, because I guess at some point, well, like you've already mentioned with Josh and Dyson, you're going to continually have guys that you're preparing, not just for NBL, but you're preparing for the NBA as well, because that's their ultimate goal, because it's become more common than it was, 20, 30 years ago. So to quit me rambling on and get on and get through with your career is obviously, when you win that championship, you decide to retire. Same as I asked with every other guest that's been on this podcast, obviously you went straight into coaching, but I asked them, was it something that you had already put thought into? Did you think of other options, or was it always basketball?
No, it was always basketball. Like I always wanted to coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, always wanted to coach. So, and then the opportunity came. Like once I retired, I was third assistant with Al that year. So we won it. The next year we lost. I was the third assistant when Al was the coach, and we end up losing a 5-game series to the Dragons.
Yeah.
That year, and then the following year, they got rid of me. So they said they was only going with 3 coaches, and it was at the time it was Al, Warwick Giddy, and Stacker.
Right. Okay.
So I actually had to get a job. I started working at ANZ. I was actually the guy that I used to hate, credit card collector.
All right.
So I was doing that, but I was also coaching at the school. So I was coaching at Wesley College.
All right. Glen Waverley, St Kilda.
We was in Glen Waverley.
Glen Waverley, yeah.
We kind of trained, but we didn't train in St Kilda. We trained in Glen Waverley, but we trained in MSAC because the St Kilda court wasn't great. And I want to give them a shout out because they just won the championship.
Oh, good on them. I coached there under. Was Laurie Chiswick there when you were there?
Laurie Chiswick is the reason why I was there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So, she's the one brought me there. I was there for 15 seasons, 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and Laurie's the one that got me there. So she hit me the other day, and she was like, "Mac, I just can't believe it. Like, because she's taking leave, and I'm up here. So I did our first 8 games this year.
Yeah.
But then I had to come up here, so I let Pete Godfrey take over, and we ended up winning the championship. So shout out to Wesley.
Great work, Wesley.
So I did that, and then I was still doing basketball. Even though I was working at ANZ, I was still doing basketball. So I was working this. It's called AUBD with Sedell 3 and his son, Sedell Jr. And that was again. It was a development. It was a development thing. We used to do that every Monday and Wednesday morning. I think we the ones started the 6 in the morning trainings.
Yep.
And it was all about development, and like we had a lot of kids just come and again work, and then that built up over the next year. So we ended up doing like 4 days a week. Started an academy, so I was doing that with me, Lil Sedell, and Coach Lenard Copeland. So we was doing that pretty much every day. So I was doing both of those, and again also working. And then I ended up getting a call back to the Tigers with Ian Stacker. Took a job in at the AIS.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And so Al called me back. So now I'm the second assistant behind Waz and Al. And unfortunately, we didn't have a great season. I ended up taking over with 10 games to go. Didn't make the playoffs. End up getting cut again, or end up not coming back, and just went back to AUBD and just did that. So again, I was still doing Wesley. Went back to AUBD, and then that next year they didn't do that well. I think Trevor Gleason took over.
Yeah,
they didn't do that well. Then I think Larry and Michael came on board. Trevor was gone. They hired Chris Anstey. I'm leaving Wesley training. He gives me a call, Mac. I'm about to get the Tigers job. I want you to be my assistant. So then I ended up with Chris. Did 2 years with Chris. We ended up the second year we ended up making the playoffs. That was with Chris Goulden. That was the year he had that 50-point game. We ended up losing to Adelaide in the semis, and then they ended up losing to Perth in the final. And then the next year is when United started, the first year United. And just didn't pan out. Like, they let Anstey go after the first game. I took over, and it wasn't, I think we had some times like where we was doing pretty well. We were doing pretty well, but again, we didn't make the playoffs. And then they end up getting rid of me. Ended up getting a call from a friend of mine, Matt Shanahan. Offered me a job in Knox. So now I was at Knox. I was the voice coordinator, and I was also coaching our Big B team. It was Big B at the time, so I did that for some years. And then out of the blue, I'm at Sunday training with Knox, and I get a text from Dean Vickerman, and I'm sitting up here going like, and it just said, Mac, could you come to United on Monday? Want to have a chat to you about a coaching position, blah, blah, blah. I thought somebody was pranking me.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
It's come and go, isn't it?
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. And again, I thank him to this day. So I showed, like, I showed Dave, and I was like, and he was like, dude, like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? And I still couldn't believe it. The crazy thing at that time, I put in for a job to work at the juvenile detention. I can't remember, was it juvenile detention? What they called that? I can't remember what it was. So I ended up putting in a job for that.
Right.
And so doing United, I went that Monday, man. Watched training. Me and then went to lunch. Gave me an idea what the job was going to be. The development. I won't travel. I stay back, work with the development players and things like that. But I'm on the coaching staff. But then again, I end up getting a call from the Parkville youth. I can't even.
Most people in Melbourne will know it. Yeah, Parkville Youth Detention Centre.
Detention. Yeah. So I end up getting a job. There.
Right.
So
did you actually start it?
I ended up working. So I was doing both.
Right.
So I'm United in the morning, but I would leave United. So after guys get their shots, I would leave and go work at the juvenile detention center at Parkville. You know what I mean? So I was doing both of those, and I did that for about a year, right? Doing both, and then next year came around, and this is when all the COVID stuff came. All the COVID stuff hit, and I'm at work. I'm at the juvenile detention center, I get a text, if you was near this guy, you were close. Remember all the close contact stuff?
Yeah.
Right. So because I was a close contact, I shut down United training. Like
Oh,
I couldn't go to training because I was close contact until I get 2 negative tests. And I still, even with the negative test, I still had to sit out for, what was it, 2 weeks, right? It was 2 weeks.
mm.
So I couldn't go to training for 2 weeks. I go back to training, go back to work that Monday. Tuesday, I'm a close contact again. 2 more weeks. I had to sit out 2 more weeks. So I get a call from Mark Boyd, CEO, I think CEO, COO, CEO. I get a call from Mark. Mac, you're not going back there. We're gonna make you full time.
Oh, blessing in
So,
disguise.
oh my goodness, it was a blessing. But I ain't gonna lie. I enjoy working at the detention center because I got opportunity to work with underprivileged kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And just having, sitting down with them and talking to them and trying to get them to understand there's life outside of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I went in there for the basketball, like trying to, teach them basketball and things like that. But it was tough, man. Like I ain't gonna lie, man. It was tough because there's gangs in there. These guys can't come together. You got a group here and a group here. They all behind like fences. These guys, if they come out, they can't come out. It was unreal. Like it was crazy, man. It was to a point. It was a little bit scary. But
Yeah. And we're only talking a few years ago. Yeah.
A few years ago. I was never involved in any incidents.
Yeah.
But again, it's funny because you hear stuff, and then there was a kid, and I don't know if I should bring it up, but it was a kid that got stabbed in Werribee.
Mm.
Right, young kid, basketball.
Yeah.
The guy that did it ended up in there.
Yeah.
Right, and so I'm like, dude, what made you do that? Because you can ask them questions, but it's kind of you gotta kind of word them a certain way. And I ended up I asked him, and I'm like, dude, what, you know what I mean? He's like, I wasn't trying to kill him. I'm trying to stab him in his arm. The fact that you got a knife is scary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah. So now again, I ended up back in like I said, Boydie called me and said, we just gonna make you full time. And this, I was community officer. So I did that. I did the academy. So my name was on the academy. So I actually ended up, because of it, you know what, I'm just gonna do these sessions myself.
Yeah.
So I was doing that Monday and Thursday mornings, and just camps during the school holidays. You know what I mean? But again, still on the coaching staff. And then again last year, so we knew. I don't know. It was talk that Shula was going for the Brisbane job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's funny. Was I serious? I don't even know if I was serious at the time.
Mm.
But when I found out he was going for it, I said, "Listen, man." I said, "Dude, if you get this job, I'm available."
Mm.
And he said, "Oh, that's good to know." And
Yeah.
again, I didn't even mean it to where, like, I didn't love where I was at. I love United. It was fun. Like,
Yeah.
I enjoyed every minute of it. Like, love working with Dino, love working with Shula, love working with Reese, Ball, like everybody there. I enjoyed my time there. And when I tapped him, I said that, and he said, "Oh, that's good to know."
Mm.
And then he got the call, and he just reached out to me, and I was like, "Sure, yeah, I'll do it." And I found, and I kind of felt like I wouldn't say I felt bad, but like the whole time I know it. Like I'm going. Like he talked to me, said, "Listen, just tell me what you want. We'll work on getting it for you." And I'm like, "Cool."
Mm.
So he ended up the next day. We
Yeah.
got you. We got you what you want. Blah 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 blah. The whole time I'm like, I know I need to tell Dino. Like I
Yeah.
need to tell Dean. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, so I called him, and I'm like, no, I texted him. I said, Dean, Dino, can you talk? And he texted me back, so I called him, and he said he kind of
He
already
knew.
knew.
Yeah.
He knew straight away. So
That's amazing, though. Like that shows a lot of heart. That the fact that you felt anything to have to tell him, because, in professional sports, the reality is most coaches finish wherever they are by getting sacked. That's just the way it is. And so for you, after having had that experience of being cut multiple times, to still feel like, oh, I hope I haven't hurt anyone's feelings by, going up to Brisbane, like that says a lot about you. So,
yeah, it was. I ain't gonna lie, it was tough, but I think it was, and then for me, it was opportunity. It was
yeah,
opportunity for a bigger role, and
yeah,
again, and it's funny because I was in the office with Justin today and thanked him again for giving
yeah,
me the opportunity to come up and work with him, and even when he was there, like always, like we kind of
yeah,
bounce things off. Well, not
yeah,
necessarily. He's under, like, he knows his shit. Like
yeah,
he's really switched on and everything.
yeah,
And like again, if I see something, I'll throw it at him. Like, yo, thanks for letting me know. And that working relationship we had, even again, seeing each other every day, we I had a working relationship with all of them.
yeah.
But the working relationship we had was, and again, I think that played a big part in me coming up here because he knows me.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
100%. I
And
don't even know you
that
guys,
played
and
a
I would
big part
say
in it.
that because it's like anyone that recruits someone new, all of a sudden you got to spend the first month building rapport, building chemistry,
Yeah,
building all
absolutely,
that. You guys already got that, so you're already 2 steps ahead. Um,
absolutely.
so I won't keep you much longer, Dmack, because I know
All good.
it's getting late and you got the game tomorrow.
No,
But
I actually don't mind talking.
yeah, that's good, man. I've got So the last guest I had on the podcast was Christy Harrower, who was a phenomenal
No, Christy.
WNBL point guard,
Yeah.
multiple time Olympian. And when I was writing down this question, I thought of her and I thought of yourself because you're in this situation now where you could go one of two ways, or you could go either way, right? And that is that you've made a name for yourself as a specialist assistant coach, right? You work intimately with players one-on-one and looking at their development. And I guess where Christy comes into this is, I said to her, I said, with your background, you could be coaching anywhere in the world. You wouldn't need, you're not handcuffed to being assistant coach of the Melbourne Boomers. You could go to the WNBA. You could head coach in Europe. You played in France for 5 years. You won a French league title. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, head coaching isn't for everyone. Maybe one day I will do it, but that's a different skill set." And then when I thought about you coming on the podcast, I was thinking, well, Dmack could obviously be a head coach. He's been interim before. But also with your skill set and what you're known for, you could essentially be the Phil Handy of Australia, right? So Phil Handy, for those that don't know, is a very good development coach and one-on-one coach, not just development, because he also works with the absolute stars. But he doesn't need to be the head coach, right? Because he's there improving the best players' games.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by you could go either ways. You could be the Phil Handy of Australia, and be that guy, and not need to be the head coach. But maybe you do want to be the head coach. So I guess that sort of leads us into the last question: is sort of have you thought much about where you want to go with your career? Are you just going to sort of see where life takes you? Because there's those sort of things, I guess, that I thought about anyway. Maybe you're not thinking about them, but I'll put
Yeah.
them to you.
Yeah. No, appreciate it. Phil Handy's actually the reason why I do development. Like he
Right.
was one of the first ones to do it, and because I know he played here and then he went over, and I think he played a year or two in Europe, and then he took on the whole basketball development role and just kind of blew it out the water. Like he easily one of the best in the world. And when I seen that, you know what I mean, I kind of took hey, like training. It was more probably for little kids, if anything, to start. And again, he's the reason why I do it. And I love it. I love the development of kids. Like I love the development of players. I just want to help players get better, right? As far as being a head coach, and I think Chrissy Harrow is right. It's not necessarily for everybody. Like I did it a couple of times on the NBL level. I do it. Excuse me. I do it with the school. I did it NBL 1. Right now, I love what I'm doing as an assistant. You know what I mean? And to be honest, I haven't even thought about the whole head coaching thing.
Yeah.
Again, if it's something that happens down the line, then Will I look at it? Yeah, maybe. But I actually enjoy this side of it. Like, I enjoy what I'm doing now. Like, I enjoy helping, helping Shula, helping Vandy, helping Josh, helping the other coaches, and being part of that. And like the head coach's job, again, I'll go back to when I was coaching. It is so different now. Like, it is pretty much, I won't say a full-time job, but when I say job, I won't say it as a full-time job. When you love what you do, it's not a job. And you know what I mean? And I think for a lot of coaches, if you're a head coach, you absolutely love it. But there's so much that goes into it that I've learned now, you know what I mean, that I've learned over the last 4 years compared to when I was coaching. Because I'll tell you, when I coached, I actually thought I knew everything when I was coaching. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing.
Right.
Because I've done it. Like, I've played. You can't tell me, but it's weird. Like, you don't. You know what I mean? And somebody came up to me one day and said, "Matt, you need to use your assistants. You need to use your assistant coaches, man." And it's one thing that I, even to this day, like, I take that away. Like, coaches, head coaches are great, but I think you need to have your assistant coaches. And again, that's why, again, right now I love being an assistant. You know what I mean? And again, going to Brisbane, again, taking on a bigger role, doing more and more stuff like that. I guess the only part of that is it takes away from, I can't do, like, again, when I was doing with Melbourne, I can always do extra stuff. I could do, like, again, I can train kids. I can earn money doing that. Like, right now, it's hard to do that, Brisbane. Maybe later on, maybe once the season ends, it could be something that I can work on. But it's something that I love. Like, I love the basketball development. Like, again, I'm online. I watch, and again, I don't. Everybody steals from other coaches. Yeah. You know what I mean? You don't know everything. But again, it's some of it I use from what I used to do. Some stuff I see. I go online. Like, again, I follow Phil. I follow a lot of those guys that do the basketball development in the States. And, you can take some of what they do and add your own stuff to it. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? But the main thing for me is right now is with Brisbane. Is trying to, again, I want to help Shula win the championship. Help us win the championship, and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and thanks for wrapping it up that way, because that's a big part of what we've discussed in the other podcasts is staying connected to something that you love, and obviously you love hoops, right? And you might end up being, in 30 years' time, you're the Greg Popovich of Australia, and you're still coaching and and just hobbling around. But as long as you found what you enjoy, because we have had guests on that, and I really appreciate their vulnerability, that said when they gave up, when they retired because they didn't go into coaching or anything with the sport, they fell into a real depression. Like, they struggled because they identified as basketball players, and
that can happen.
Yeah, and so for you to find what you love and to stay with it, and maybe a bit of divine intervention there when you were about to sort of go off one way, and COVID struck and they pulled you back in. That was all meant to be, perhaps.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Yeah, look, just keep doing what you're doing. Again, I really appreciate someone like yourself taking the time to come on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, because it's just the more we can get out of you guys, because at the end of the day, us as fans, we love the game, but the reality is we learn a lot more from you guys that have been on the other side. You can watch as much as you want, but like we talked about before, when you said the players need to just go hoop, like, nothing beats experience. So
got to get out there and do it.
Yeah. So thanks again. If we're still going in a couple of years, we'll catch up and see where you are in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thanks again, Dmack.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thanks, Andrew.
All right, thanks, mate. Take care.
All right.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe on whichever platform you tune in on, and we'll see you in the next episode.